Well, good morning, friends. Morning. I'm Pastor Sara. If I haven't met you, so good to see you. It is a sweet moment to be from Seattle, yeah? I mean, go Mariners, right? Oh, my God. Oh, and I was talking to Jim, and Jim's like in the Kraken one and the Sounders one, and the Seahawks are playing today. Huskies are doing good. Like, it's just a sweet moment. Jason and I are huge Sounders fans, actually, and they're also in the playoffs. And like, there's never been a season when both the Sounders and the Mariners have both been in the playoffs before. There's always been at least one, but like this year's the year. Like, we're all in, and like, I don't know, it's feeling really sweet and fun. So go Seattle and all the things. Woo! All right. Okay. So I digress. All right. Man, we're just going to dive right into our text from Mark today already. Do you need to stretch out? Are you good? Can we just do that? All right. So what we're going to find, Jesus, essentially, he like runs off and he's trying to hide when a woman asks him to heal his daughter of an unclean spirit, a demon. And then there's the banter that follows. That's kind of fantastic and strange. So as we read this, just imagine this scene unfolding. All right. Take a breath with me. And here's Mark 7:24-30. Why don't we read it together? Jesus left Gennesaret and went to the territory of Tyre and Sidon. There he went into a certain house and wanted no one to recognize him, but he could not pass unrecognized. A woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him. She approached Jesus and fell at his feet. The woman, who was Greek, a Syrophoenician by birth, begged Jesus to expel the demon from her daughter. Jesus told her, "Let the children of the household satisfy themselves at table first. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." She replied, "Yes, Rabbi, but even the dogs under the table eat the family's scraps." Then Jesus said to her, "For saying this, you may go home happy. The demon has left your daughter." When she got home, she found her daughter in bed and the demon gone. Side note, Jason and I were like, it would have been sweet if this landed last Sunday on the Pet Blessing Sunday. Anyway. So Jesus has this like very odd conversation, right? Where you're reading it, you're like, what is happening, right? So there's this odd conversation with this woman. And what do we know about her? She's Syrophoenician by race, which means she's Greek, and she's Gentile, meaning not a Jew. You'll remember that last Sunday in our text that was right before this one, Jesus calls out how the food, the eating, and the washing rituals around purity and being clean and unclean, like that is all that essentially like doesn't matter, is what he calls out. How what makes someone unclean is not what foods go in, but what comes out of them. Yes, Jesus makes a poop joke, which is pretty great. He's like, no. What I'm referring to is the connection of heart to actions, right? That what we do is a matter. It's an outflow of the heart, that it shows what's on the inside. So this is a big kind of offensive deal that Jesus would say this because Jewish identity and fidelity to God is expressed through those rituals, right? Like it's showing who they are. So it makes sense that immediately after that, Jesus gets out of town, right? He heads into this Gentile town to essentially hide. And the connection then to last week is that then here now is a girl with an unclean spirit, just more with the purity and what's clean and unclean. So again, just such an odd conversation because of the teasing banter between Jesus and this woman. Are you familiar with this text? Or you're like, yep, heard it before. Okay, so yes, some no. Cool. So let's talk about what's going on in it so that when you hear this odd text in the future, you can say, you know what? I know what's going on here. Like, I know this, okay? So we're gonna get this, okay? And then we're gonna run with it and see how this kind of ripples out into our life together here at Salt House in some beautiful and timely ways, all right? You ready? You ready? Okay, good, okay. So perhaps the first question that comes up for you, I know that it does for me, is like, just simply the question like, wait a minute, does Jesus call this woman a dog? Right? Like, is that what's happening right here? Rude. So she asked Jesus to heal her daughter from an unclean spirit. Jesus uses a metaphor of how the children of the household should be fed first before anyone else, especially the dogs. And using the metaphor, he seems to be saying, sorry, my healing isn't for you right now because you're the dog in this scenario, right? So let's reflect on this. So at that time, Jews often thought of Gentiles as dogs, and what the Gentiles said about the Jews was usually just as uncomplimentary. So on one level, just to have that context, it kind of pulls the sting of what could be perceived as a totally out of the blue insult, right? Just kind of knowing that this is part of the language and the banter of the time, okay? Does that make sense? But more importantly for us, and this is the thing that's really key to this text, this metaphor of household and table and food scraps, it's really helpful for us. You see, Jesus had a particular vocation that he was trying to fulfill in a very small amount of time. I forget about this sometimes. I just think that Jesus, in his 3 years of public ministry, just blasting every person possible with love and healing and mic drop teaching moments and turning over tables and challenging empire and reaching out to the outcasts and making room for everybody and just extending the embrace of God to include as many people as possible in this kingdom movement he was beginning, right? I just seemed everybody, right? It's for everybody. So the commentators I was reading this week, though, remind us how it's more nuanced than that. Jesus had a particular vocation that he was trying to fulfill in a very small amount of time. He was conscious during his ministry, and then we see it in the early church that they were conscious thereafter that his personal vocation was not to spread the gospel to the Gentiles, not to the Gentile world, but to tell the Jewish people themselves that their long-awaited deliverer, their deliverance was at hand, and indeed to bring it about by completing his vocation in Jerusalem on the cross. So that's why Jesus refers to the children of the household. The Jews are the children. It's Israel. The Jewish people were God's chosen people, chosen not so that everyone else is excluded, but chosen to be God's representative people who would be eventually empowered by the Spirit of Jesus, and they become the ones then who spread and embrace and become that love of God that after Jesus has completed his redeeming work on the cross. That's why our text says that Jesus came to this Gentile territory to do what? To hide, right? He didn't go there to teach and heal and do a bunch of stuff, but to lay low after saying some really risky things. So the Gentiles, they will be brought into all of this soon enough. But for the moment, it was vital that Jesus not be distracted from his primary task. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, I've never quite understood that nuance here in this text, that although God's love and redemption and healing, and it's for everybody, right? And Jesus needed to stay, though, focused on his mission, his piece of how the saving and reconciling work of God would play out for the whole world, right? He had a piece in how that was unfolding. So you tracking that? Yeah? Yeah. So this is true for us too, Salt House, that we get to keep wondering, what is our piece together in God's saving and reconciling work now? What is our vocational focus? What that we should not get distracted from? And I love that question. It's just been remarkable to see how and who we are. Y'all, how we've had such an impact in our world already. The love and the faith and the healing that happens here in our church and all that we do. It's awesome. And I want to spend the next few minutes kind of capturing 3 important dynamics of what we see here in our church community at Salt House in light of our text today. And we'll hear it for our lives too, okay? But are you with me? We're going to walk through some stuff. Cool. You are here. Sara wore a very appropriate shirt. She texted me this morning. She's like, dogs are my favorite people. So good. In the spirit of this text, let's hear how we hear it for us too. Thank you, Sara. Oh man. Okay. So friends, we are actually living in a season of asking this question about our vocational focus. We are living in a threshold moment as a church, aren't we? We're in the midst of kind of crossing from one thing into the next. We celebrated our 10th anniversary back in March, and then also Pastor Ryan left at the end of June, called on to new things. And both of those things are significant events, right? What we call kairos moments that give us a reason to pause and stop and ask questions about who we've been, about who we are now, and who God is calling us to be. And then, after all those questions, to ask questions like, how should we staff in light of all of that, right? So we are in this discerning threshold time between what has been and what's to come, passing through, right? And we've built into this season that we're in an intentional process for discernment. We've been talking about this, about how we've hired a consultant. This is Angie Woolley. She has a vast field of experience as a pastor, a spiritual director, a professional coach. She's been the executive director of nonprofits. She was part of starting a homeless ministry in Seattle decades ago that is still going strong. Like, she's awesome. And we have a team of folks here at Salt House who have said yes to being our discernment team, who will work with Angie. Thank you, you guys. So grateful for you. The discernment team, we're going to have our kickoff meeting together on Saturday, November 1st. And we anticipate this to be probably a 6-month process. And there are going to be regular updates from this team, as well as invitations for your participation in this work. So as we see Jesus's, his focus on his vocation in our text, I want you to know that we're focusing on our vocation and our focus too. All right. So that's the number one thing the first thing I want to mention is we've launched our discernment team. Yay! And we'll get that team up here to commission them in the near future too. So you'll get to see who they are. But then the second thing that I want to call out about this, about our vocation and this season that we're in. One aspect of this team's work will be gathering information and input about us, right? They're going to be paying attention to what's happening here, right? And so this makes this a season, number 2, a season to see what's possible, right? We're looking for the boundaries around our capacity and what we're capable of, giving our particular size and location, the opportunities that we have, the relationships that we've built in the community, our particular income and the offerings that we receive, right? We're going to be looking at all those dynamics to see what's possible and how that is, different than it was 10 years ago. So we can see, okay, how do we shift course as necessary, right? So this team is going to be looking at many different areas of ministry, but there are 2 areas in particular that I want to just call out and name today, inviting a response from y'all as we talk about it, because I just see these 2 as so important in shaping our sense of mission and identity moving forward, all right? So in this seeing what's possible area, first thing I want to talk about is number 1, our capacity to love and serve. So just like our neighbors as well as each other, we're going to be looking at, what does that look like? What could it be in the future? And part of that discernment is listening for God's nudges. Be hey, what's God saying that we haven't even heard yet, right? So there'll be some of that. But then also that piece of observational information of what we are capable of doing. And I'm thinking specifically of how we engage with those experiencing homelessness, especially our neighbors next door at Kirkland Place Shelter, right? As well as also how we care for one another as we come alongside one another through difficult seasons. All right, so when it comes to engaging homelessness, the team will be looking at and listening for just those important ways in which we already engage with homelessness and saying, cool, how's this going? But there's one other area that already God seems to be nudging us about, because these opportunities just keep on coming. And it's the opportunity to meet specific needs of individuals and families that are not in the scope of work that the shelter does next door. So here's just one example of what I mean by that. So 3 weeks ago, a woman, a client from Helen's Place, which is the women's shelter next door, she knocked on our door in desperation. She's in the process of fleeing domestic violence, and the few possessions that she still has left in the world were located about an hour from here, and they needed to be moved to a storage unit close by to that location by 4 p.m. the next day, or she'd lose it. So Kimberly Janis, who is on site as a volunteer to be with folks as they come to our door in situations like this. She met with her, and then Kimberly and I had to decide whether or not we, Salt House, had the capacity to help, to find a truck, to find someone who could drive, to find people who could move her stuff in less than 24 hours, right? So we decided to see if we could make it happen. And you know what? It happened. Yeah. And we found a truck. Mark Templin, he was able to pick up that truck. Then he drove that hour. He met with the woman and a staff member from Helen's Place. They loaded up the truck. They moved this stuff. And you know what? It meant everything to this woman, right? She texted Kimberly and me afterwards, and she said, this is what she said. I wanted to thank you again for everything Salt House did. If you could also please pass along my deepest gratitude to Mark, it would mean so much. You, Pastor Sara, Mark, the entire Salt House community are truly amazing. I'm so grateful for your support during such an uncertain and stressful time. Thank you. Thanks be to God, yes? Thank you. But to make it happen was a lot of work, right? It was hours of coordinating. I sent emails. I was texting people individually. Many of you got those messages, right? I was texting with the woman who, as well as the case manager about it. I was texting with Joy, she's the woman whose truck that we ended up borrowing. Kimberly was on the phone with the storage unit place. I was getting addresses and times, and people coordinated and connected as they needed to be. And this was all while I was still sick with COVID. So it was so I'm in bed going, all right, hang on. But I'm so overwhelmingly grateful that we made it happen, right? But as Kimberly and I debriefed it afterwards, we raised the question, so does Salt House have the capacity to say yes when these opportunities come up, right? Helping in tangible ways that can involve cars and time, sometimes money, coordination. It's a lot. And we decided, not in the way that we did it, right? It took too much time. We needed a better system. So we decided we could only say yes in the future if we build a system just with better to better coordinate volunteers where folks are there and ready and want to serve. Does that make sense, right? So our discernment team, they're going to be listening for nudges from God for things we may not even know yet. But what if we start to respond to this nudge from God now? This need from our neighbors, because the need is there and we just kind of keep piecing it together, and it's just not going to work anymore to keep doing it that way. More needs are arising for our folks who are clients next door and others who are waitlisted and trying to get in. This is a moment the current administration has axed so much funding. There isn't the same help that even used to be there. This is a hard time for folks. You know this, yes? So we can start experimenting and gathering information now for how we can meet the needs of one person, one family on the day that is the hardest day of their lives, right? Trying out this ministry of justice and mercy and loving our neighbors in practical ways that are needed now. So to do that, we need you, right? We need as many folks as possible. So friends, I want to ask you to sign up to be part of a pool of people, the helpers, what we're going to call our Love in Action team, that are notified when there's a need like this. We want to put a system in place around what we've already been trying to do and what we have done. And the hope is that this becomes a huge group of people who have different things to offer, right? But the hope is that you also think of it as a very small group of people, so that when a need arises, a request comes in, our assumption is not that someone else has it taken care of, right? But that we stop and check in and say, wait, can I make this work? And absolutely say, nope, can't do it this week. That's fine. But to choose that posture of yes, we can, that love in action. There are so many groups and organizations that are forming and rallying around such awful things right now, around bigotry, racism, homophobia, transphobia, exclusion, hate. And friends, let us rally gather around a way of love and mercy, building this mobilized group of people who can respond in faith and love to those who need it. And if you can tell, I'm really feeling God's nudge about all of this, which is why we're talking about it right now. But I want us to explore together how this might be a piece of Salt House's movement, right? That in God's movement, that saving and reconciling work of God in the world, right? So our Love and Action team will also be available to serve the needs of our Salt House community too, yeah? Which is awesome. This is for our needs also. And this is something we already do, but it has that same struggle at times to recruit the help when there are like more nuanced needs for tasks and assistance. So this will give more structure and therefore just like more opportunities for this kind of care and support to happen in our church. Because not only do we want to roll up our sleeves and engage in mercy and justice for our neighbors outside these walls and beyond, but this is what it means to be beloved community together, right? Man, I was just like watching you all talking to each other during the welcome question. Could you just like feel the love in the room? Like it's here and we're just putting some structure on the love that we already feel in this place, which is awesome. So this kind of care and connection happens in relationship and in community. We see it happening, and it's just so much of what we long for, like almost more than anything else, right? To come and be seen as we are, to see others as they are, to show up with our needs and to see others' needs. And also, I know I say that, it's like we long for that, but it's also so hard, right? Vulnerability, am I right? Yeah. This is what we keep coming here to do together, to stretch out our vulnerability muscles, to let ourselves be seen by God as we are, so we might also be seen by each other as we are too. And our Love and Action team, again, just offers another opportunity to practice this, to grow as we ask for help, right? But also as we show up to help others. All right, so that's the first area, just highlighting that our discernment team will be watching, as how we care and love for our neighbors and one another. So let's show them what we can do, okay? Can we do that? I'll have some information about signing up for that in a moment. So the second area I want to mention just more briefly is just talking about our finances. Like, what is our financial capacity right now, right? Which makes sense because our team and then our church council, we will need to consider what our capacity is for budgeting for and hiring additional staff on the other side of this. So our fiscal year began on July 1st. And this was after Pastor Ryan had left. And so our budget includes only the current staff members that we have right now, meaning no like placeholder for another pastor, for another hire, another staff member of another sort. And though we did include $30,000 for this threshold time to cover costs like additional preachers and the costs for our consultant, Angie Woolley. So after we faithfully go through this discernment process, if we would like to see an additional pastor, another staff member, ideally we would see our offerings now and in the 6 months, like coming in at a rate that puts us at an excess, right? Above our projected budget for this year. Does that make sense, right? Showing us what we can afford in the future. And so far for this fiscal year, with 3 months in, we're not seeing that currently. The great news is that we are seeing a 15% increase in giving over a year ago, like for the first quarter, which is awesome. But we are below budget year to date, where compared to where we'd like to be. We'd love to see us at like 110%, right? Like that's what we're kind of going for. And Salt House, y'all are some of the most generous people I have ever known. But also many folks are new to Salt House. You may not have had a chance to set up giving and kind of join in what we're doing here. And you may even think that we've like got it covered and it's like totally not needed. I'm letting you know that it's needed, right? We're in a really sweet place. We're not worried or anything like that, but it could be sweeter. And we're living in this defining time where what we start giving now will directly influence what we're able to say yes to 6 months from now and beyond. So if we can grow our giving now, our generosity here at Salt House, to widen the options for what God might be calling us to do next. All right. And again, of all the things that are happening in the world right now, what God is doing in and through Salt House is remarkable. So thank you for your generosity that is already like, this is why we're here, right? So thank you. It's what makes what we do continue to be possible, this and more in the future. Yes? Yes. Awesome. Okay. So the third and final thing I want to mention about this threshold time we're living in is this. We are a community living through some transition. We're living through some transition, which means some of the things that we do need to be done differently. some of the things need to be set aside for a season, right? And I want to name how that can be hard for folks, right? You may miss certain things as they used to be. You may not like something about the way we're doing things right now in this threshold time. And I just want to name that out loud, that that's a natural response to feel that. You may feel grumbly. Grumbly's okay. And I also invite you into a posture of grace and openness as we live through this season together into what God is calling us into in the next season. Grief and disappointment are real things, but choosing to live with hope and possibility is a choice that we can make. So this is the third and final thing, just choosing grace for this season that we're in. Grace for yourself, for however, if you are feeling the grumblies, right? Like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm feeling that way, right? So have some grace for yourself, but also grace for our church. Being changed is one of our 7 core practices. We believe that we are always being changed, that God is working that in us, right? And being changed always comes with bumps, right? It is a bumpy process. So let's ride those bumps together. So thank you for that grace for me, for our whole staff, for all of our leadership at this time too, okay? But also, y'all, this feels like a really sweet season that we're in our community. God is doing some lovely things. Do you feel that? Yes, folks are showing up. We're getting tastes of like what's to come. So I'm so excited about our discernment process and what this team's going to do. There's just such a sense of how God is already stirring things up in us for what's next. So hang in there, show up and work those vulnerability muscles together. And as always, just reach out if you need to talk or need some support. We're in this together, always. Yes? Yes. All right, so let's do this. Let's put love into action, all right? So for the Love in Action team, you don't have to be a member for this team to be a part of it. This could be your first time here. You'd be like, actually, I think I want to be a part of this, right? Like you can be anywhere in your process of faith deconstruction or reconstruction, and you can still join the Love in Action team. So there should be a card in your bulletin. I didn't double check. Can you check if that's there? Who's got a lucky card? You get one and you got one. Okay. There's also a link online. You'll notice that there are other ways that we put love into action listed as well. Our prayer team, our email prayer line, our meal train, and our care partners. Those are listed too if you're interested. But take a look. If you're feeling like, yep, I'm in, just check that box and turn it in today. But if you need time, think about it. You can always sign up online later as well. So that's there for you. Go for it. You can just leave it in the basket on the way out today or hand it directly to me and be like, woohoo, I'm so excited. And I'll be like, great, me too. So yes, also you can, regarding giving, easily access on our website, soulhousechurch.org/giving if you want to go and set up one-time or online giving. All the things, right? Just to help us expand what's possible. So just have that on your radar too, that's easy to access online. All right, so in all of this, here's why this may feel hard, but also why it matters right now. Question: with what is happening in our country and our world right now, and even in our own lives, are you having any experiences of despair, hopelessness, anger, numbness, or overwhelm? Anyone? I'm like, every day, all the time. That's because everything around us right now is telling us 2 things. It's telling us there isn't enough, and it's telling us you are alone, right? Scarcity and isolation. And those in power want us to keep thinking that this is true so that we remain complacent and numb and inactive. But this is not true. Just look around this room full of people who feel quite similarly to how you feel today. You are here this morning because you have an inkling that the God of the universe is for us, right? And that's true. That God is on our side. The same God who created the cosmos, the same God who designed the oceans that cover this earth and the gorgeous leaves that are transforming before our eyes outside. The God that we know in Jesus. There is nothing that can separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. And it is a love that knits us together, that fuels our capacity to put love into action. And when we do it, it's just another moment when love wins and not scarcity and not isolation. So friends, let's love with all we got, yes? And not believe the lies of scarcity and loneliness that will keep us saying no, right? Do you remember that we started in the Gospel of Mark? That's where I started? Yeah, okay. So I love Jesus' example in our text today that helps us to see the nuance of, oh my gosh, there are things that we say yes to and things that we say no to when it comes to focusing in on what God is calling us to in our lives. We've been talking today about what that looks like, right? Lived out in community here at Sawhouse, but of course, this is something for us to take into our lives this week, yes? So I wonder, in your particular job, relationships, neighborhood, work, school, your circles of influence, what is your vocational focus? What is your piece of how the saving and reconciling work of God will play out for the whole world? Just a small question for you to reflect on. So it's a huge question, right? But those answers, they come in with every day right in front of us, mundane even. Like those are the answers that we live into, are the things right in front of us. So how does love become a verb for God's nudges in your life today? What has God invited you to tend to with love this week? We see Jesus with that kind of focus in our text, at least in how it begins, right? But of course, as he speaks with this woman, even though she's outside of his mission, what does he do? He helps her anyway, right? And we see how God's love and redemption and grace and healing is for everybody. And even with Jesus's focused mission, even Jesus can be flexible to be present with the one who is in need right in front of him. It's the messy beauty of loving this world. That is the surprising tenderness of our God who bends with love when needed. So friends, let's keep finding ways to bend toward one another and our world together. Amen? Amen. As our band comes back up, just invite you to a little bit of a prayerful space. Not only is love a verb, but faith is a verb too. And I want to invite us into a moment of response. A moment of faith is a verb. So first, just quietly ask yourself, what's one thing I long for Jesus to meet me in today? Essentially, what's your one prayer for you today? Whatever it is, I invite you just to hold it before God, to reach out with it. Like that's faith. And if it helps, you can close your eyes, kind of take a breath as you think about it. You may even want to kind of whisper your prayer under your breath. Just one sentence. Just take some time with this. We're going to start singing, and then we'll carry these prayers into some prayer time together too. Well, let's sing.